you can build a life that to the outside world looks very functional, but internally you're miserable.
Yeah.
And that's because you've created no space.
Yeah. No margin.
No margin for anything good.
Yeah.
You may be checking all the boxes, but you're not enjoying it. And it's crazy to me. And there's been so many articles and studies about this. We work our entire life to get to retirement. So we work like crazy to maybe enjoy like 10 years of freedom.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF podcast. We are so excited to be with you today. Before we jump into our topic, couple things. One, if you haven't already, like, share, and comment on our podcast. We would love to hear from you.
Leave a review.
We would love to hear your reviews. We want more insight on topics you want us to cover or situations that you're facing. We would love to speak into those. Next thing is, if you or your family is looking for coaching, so BKF has a coaching program. Myself, Vanessa, we are both coaches. We have several amazing couples who have gone through certification to become BKF coaches. They are incredible at walking you through very, very challenging moments in your blended family, whether that is marriage help. I've coached many, many folks going through litigation seasons and how we adapt and how we strategize for the healthiest part of those seasons. So if you're curious about that, you can go to our website, fill out a contact form. We would love to just talk to you and talk you through that.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Today's going to be a fun topic. It's one that I don't remember us doing a podcast on this.
No.
It's labeled Invisible Labor and Household Management.
Yeah, so I was telling Scott right before the podcast, I said, this reminds me of one of the reels. If you're, on TikTok or Instagram and you look at reels, it reminds me of the reel where the wife is at the kitchen sink or she's like folding laundry and you see all these things popping off around her head of like, I've got to pick up the kids, I've got to do this, I got to do that, blah, 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 blah. And then it like turns the camera to the husband and he's just thinking like, what's for dinner? It's like the one thing or whatever. But it really got us thinking about, the things that we as wife and as husband think about individually that maybe we don't voice and not even realizing that the toll of that mental load, like how that can affect our marriage, how it can affect us as individuals and what we do and how we are within our family.
Yeah, I think we live life at a extraordinarily fast pace.
Yeah.
I often think back to like, you look back in history, like into the 1920s and 1930s, just the amount of things that they thought and did versus the amount of things that we think and do now.
Sure.
We are literally living at light speed and trying to somehow understand why we are either stressed, tired, or we're not doing the things that we value.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to just talk through an understanding of each other and kind of hopefully open your eyes up to that, but also maybe through some practical steps of how we communicate or how we handle those types of just everyday things.
Yeah, well, and I want to read some stats. I think stats are always fun to, talk about, but this was verified from the Pew Research in 2023, and it says women spend an average of 28 hours per week on household tasks. I feel like I spend 28 hours in a 24-hour, like on household. Well, and we have 4 dogs. But anyways, it says that men spend an average of 16 hours per week. And it says that 59% of working mothers say they don't have enough time for household management.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the first points that we want to dive into with this is talking about and understanding invisible labor. And again, I've talked about this just a minute ago. But the mental load and task management and the emotional labor, I think that comes with that. As a mom, I think about things that you don't. And it's funny because we'll talk about, Scott will say, hey, you do that better. Like, just an example. We have golden retrievers and our dogs require eardrops sometimes. And I make Scott do that, y'all. That is a husband role.
It's my job.
It's your job. And then I always take care of the boys, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, and that is just something that I do. And Scott's like, hey, you were just better at that. But for me as a mom and as for a wife, I'm thinking, oh yeah, they need to go every 6 months. Did I get that scheduled? We have 4 kids. Did we, and there's not only just a mental load of just those things, along with the everyday, things of the ministry that we have going on, the other businesses that we have. I'm in my master's program. Like there are so many things that I think about and that I'm constantly, trying to task in my mind, and it draws out a lot of emotion. It can be emotionally draining too. And I think so many moms and working moms, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, you experience that.
And the part of it that is so crazy to me is it is so counterproductive to sometimes the life we want to live.
Sure.
We've talked so many times about your yeses and your nos and what you say yes to and what you say no to. And you can build a life that to the outside world looks very functional, but internally you're miserable.
Yeah.
And that's because you've created no space.
Yeah. No margin.
No margin for anything good.
Yeah.
You may be checking all the boxes, but you're not enjoying it. And it's crazy to me. And there's been so many articles and studies about this. We work our entire life to get to retirement. So we work like crazy to maybe enjoy like 10 years of freedom.
Yeah.
And even then, with today's economy and the things, inflation, there's not very many 2 or 1 income households anymore. So both parents are working. Our kids are in 4 or 5 different sports. Y'all know what I'm getting at. We're busy people, but is that good?
Yeah.
And is that working? And how can you work as a couple to make that a more enjoyable experience and more effective?
Yeah, you and I had a conversation not too long ago where, I asked you, I was like, hey, what is it that husbands need that they don't voice to their wives? And like, how can wives make that better? And we had this full-blown conversation about that. And I think just as women, we have needs and we think about all these things all the time, that we desire, that we need help with or whatever. And the same goes for men. And I think, like you said, I think so many couples get into this situation of, going back to like this invisible like mental load and workload. And I think practically it's a lot of time because like there's just not that intentional communication. And so I think some practical steps here that we can take, or application, is just awareness, and it's making invisible become visible. And so we talk about this in our book, Blended and Redeem, about having those marriage meetings, having those, or weekly marriage meetings, weekly business meetings, and sitting down and having that personal one-on-one time with your spouse each day so that you can kind of share like, oh my gosh, these are the things that I need to get done. These are the things I need to accomplish. And then you together as a couple have the opportunity provided to say, hey, let me serve you in this area and let me take that off your plate. Or, hey, let me think through this with you. I think that there could be a better way or an easier way to do that so that you're less stressed, or, hey, let's get some help with that so you don't have to worry about that. I think just taking that intentional time and bringing out what may be invisible that you're thinking about and emotionally dealing with, and making that visible to your spouse.
Well, I love that you brought up that question, and I don't want to gloss over the answer here. So, wives. Well, the question before of what does your husband desire? So I want to make sure that I don't gloss over. There actually is an answer to this.
That opportunity.
Yes.
You were like, I am
going to just enlighten the entire wife network of Blended Kingdom families. Your husbands desire one thing, and one thing only, is for you to be happy. No, it's not. I'm telling you, I have seen, you're talking about reels. One of the reels that I saw not too long ago was, these things that you think your husband desires, whether it's sex or it's good food. No, it's for you to be happy. Like I look at a world sometimes, and even us, and I think I said this to you the other day, we work so hard for you to be stressed. Like it doesn't do anything that is good if at the end of the day, our goal as a husband is to make our wives happy.
And then the wife's stressed.
Yeah, and then if the wife is stressed, it's like we did all this work and it still didn't work. And so I think, again, you had these domino effects that are happening. And I understand a lot of kids, blended families, a lot of kids, you've got a lot of things going on. But you have to look at this and go, as a husband, I'm here to provide security and make my wife happy.
Well, and I think, when we're talking about that practical application of making visible what's invisible, I think also too, just your regular evaluation. We're mental health professionals. Scott's a licensed therapist, and I'm in my master's program. And we talk about getting into biblically based counseling. You guys doing those marriage tune-ups, not even when something's wrong, but having those regular evaluations of self, but also of us as a couple. I think that that's imperative to a healthy, growing marriage. And so I think that's another practical thing that we can do. And, we talk about work-life balance. Like you've been saying this podcast, Scott, we're in we do so many things, and you work so hard, to want to have a family that is happy and that, has what they need, but we have to have that work-life balance. Like we need to enjoy what we're doing, enjoying the fruits of our labor, instead of just consistently working and pushing because that's where we have burnout.
Yeah, amen to that. And I know everybody who's listening probably feels the same way. It is, we are racing to stay above the curve. And I understand the race. I understand that in today's culture, in today's society, you do have to run fast. However, there needs to be moments, whether they're trigger moments or intentional moments, where you can sit back and go, hey, I need to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what is going on outside of our home or outside these walls right now, but inside this, or inside our home or inside our bedroom, I need to be able to sit down and enjoy this and enjoy why we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, and I want to give you guys some homework. You didn't know you were going to get homework today.
Yes.
Just joking. But guys, I'm going to give you some questions, and I would love for you to just to sit down with your spouse and your spouse.
Your spouse is your spice.
You're spicy.
Yeah.
No, sit down with your spouse and talk through these questions. So one of the questions is, what spiritual principles guide your home management? Like if we're going to faith practices and spiritual practices, like what spiritual principles guide your home management? How does your faith influence household management? I mean, we talk about the biblical priorities of God, marriage, family, but are we really acting those out? Are we really pursuing that on day to day? Because I think a lot of times when we get into these seasons and we're like, man, it is so hard right now, and this is this and that and that, and we soon realize our priorities are out of alignment. What invisible tasks need recognition? Third question. And how can couples better support each other? Sit down and go through these questions. You and your spouse both share your heart on these and what you think, and develop a plan together. Or, maybe you do need to reevaluate and say, gosh, like we're a lot further away from where we thought we were. And, or maybe you're like, man, we're doing really, really well because you're both on the same page. I think these are some great discussion questions that you can ask one another, that then from there you can go apply, you can make application to and apply in your life to, maybe work some things out.
Yeah, the communication that couples need to have in this needs to be an honest communication. It needs to be, it needs to take into account the entire picture. It doesn't need to be necessarily situational. We understand there are going to be seasons that are probably busier than others, or some priorities need to come to light. But it needs to be a conversation that's going, hey, this is spanning over time.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to talk about. I love that you brought up appreciation. I think that both husbands and wives need appreciation, and you can get into those ruts of just life, and you don't acknowledge them. The overarching thought that I have as we kind of tackle this subject is understanding how much power is in our ability to say no, and our ability to declutter our lives, and how much more quality is inserted when we say no to other things.
Yeah.
And I know those are difficult tasks, but they're conversations you need to have with each other so that you can not just continue to add next year or next season to more tasks that you're doing.
Yeah, and you said margin earlier. I think that right there allows you to have margin for the things that are important, the things that really matter, the things that bring you joy, the things that allow for there to be peace. I think a practical example of that is I'll share our experience. We last year and this year we went into 2023, the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, saying that we really have said no to a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of extra stuff with the ministry, and we love what we get to do. We love being able to minister to blended families, but we have just been in a season where our boys, like that is our heart, and we feel so called to be just intentional with that time with them. And so we have said no to a lot of things that are good things, to have that time with them that, oh my gosh, like that brings us so much joy. That brings just a peace in our home. And it's really the thing that matters the most. And our family is so important to us. And so you guys, I don't know how that relates or transpires in your life, but, sometimes saying no to things that are even good things can provide opportunity for you to enjoy the most important things.
No, I love that. Last step that I want to give you guys in terms of practicality, and we touched this just a second ago, but I want to go into a little more detail. Promoting your marriage and business meetings within your couple.
Yeah.
We try to set aside time, once a week to have a marriage meeting and a business meeting. It's where we just talk through practical things on the business side of like what schedules, what's going on, what do we need to say yes to, what do we say no to. And then marriage is kind of how are we doing as a couple? What are our goals and how are we working towards that? These are extraordinarily intentional moments where you can just slow down a little bit and just kind of take a pulse of where you are. It's also a time where you can have open communication. So when we talk about things like appreciation or stress or whatever is going on in your marriage,
the invisible mental load.
Exactly. The invisibleness of this. I do think there should be a calming nature about a place that you can go that you can be peaceful. So whether that's laying in bed together, whether that is maybe watching a movie together, there's just some intentionality around this. And I think that's the key word here is be intentional about your life and your marriage and your kids and your schedule and all the things that you're doing to promote maybe a better quality of life or a better semblance of that. And the last thing I want to say on this is take each other's advice. You have a spouse who is smart, who is you've trusted them, so let them speak into the things that you're stressed about.
Yeah.
I know that's one of the things that you and I, sometimes we do it just right, and other times we're like, no. It's the things that you're stressed about, and I say, well, let's just not worry about that, or let's do it this way. And then the same thing goes for us, so we have to give each other permission to speak into each other. Guys, this moment in time is where we want to impress on you an intentionality of, hey, what is our family and what is our blended family? What is our marriage? And how are we moving towards our future? The idea of the invisible workload that we have needs to become visible and it needs to become intentional. And that's what we want to leave you with here today. You guys have all the authority here on earth and in your marriage to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about the couples that move to like a different country and just retire?
Yeah.
That sounds so fun
Yeah.
sometimes. Just the idea of just getting away. I say that because, if that's a goal of yours, you don't have to move somewhere to get it done. You can live a life that you intentionally script. And I think it's a good life to live.
Yeah.
So, guys, hope you've enjoyed this episode. Hope it's sparked some conversations within you. And can't wait to be with you again next week.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.